I am NetMoverSitan. And during this errand with the thumb, let us just say that the Marksman in the mist is rolling the tape. We continue with Chapter 37, Noise, where the highlight reel caused by the Marksman of the Mist continues with Diaz telling Captain Moses of the good job she did. She asked Diaz if she was satisfied with the outcome. She was, although she didn't think that she needed to know the detail that she was attacking actual syndicate members or not, looking at her with frigid eyes upon being asked that. She doesn't like being questioned. So Moses agreed that she didn't need to know about that much detail. Diaz liked her eyes much better, telling her that she did a good job that day. Asking if she wanted to go out and have them treat themselves to nummy food. Then we find out how it started. Between one and another. What do you mean by that, you may ask? Well, Moses was one of the many abandoned children that Diaz took in, basically raised to perform ill deeds. Reminds me of Fagin's Den of Thieves in Oliver Twist. Well, there aren't that many opportunities for abandoned children in the backstreets. Many that lack someone to care for them. They're either killed, eaten, or experimented on. If they aren't captured by the sweepers and turned into their own kind. Well, not everyone is a survivalist like the Red Mist was. Nor do they have adoptive grandparents like the Black Mist had. Diaz was one that taught Moses how to survive. She told Moses to think of her as an older sister. And Moses wanted to make Diaz's dream come true. As the marksman's bullet was digging into her, we move forward to when Elmulf brought a child to Moses, the 2142nd agent of Ujat. Moses considered her dead weight. She was brought to Moses by Lady Diaz's recommendation. So Moses agreed to teach her, although she sounded annoyed. Elmulf asked if she's going to train her herself. Moses agreed if that's what Diaz wanted, regardless of her own personal preferences. Even though she didn't know why Diaz wanted a clumsy girl to get involved. She didn't question Diaz. Her light... Clearly something changed, as that attitude would prove to be one of Diaz's many methods of manipulation. Then we move forward, and it was revealed that this girl was Ezra, one who had a similar origin to Moses. She greeted Moses with dullness and a lack of politeness. Okay, if she was with the thumb, she'd have been mutilated for that. Thankfully, she's not. Moses asked, what was it? Ezra asked if killing their enemies was all they had to do. Moses understood that this uninitiated girl was unaware of what was fully needed to do. Oh. In case it isn't obvious, Diaz is big on using child soldiers as pawns. It's almost as disgusting as using children as test subjects. More than one wing has done that. Ezra heard that their work involved beating their enemies to death. Well, at least to a pulp, anyway. Moses implied that it wasn't as simplistic as that. That she should read books and study more. Ezra didn't see why she needed that, considering that Diaz provided for her in terms of augmentation procedures. Clearly investing much to make sure that her pawns were at least physically combat effective. And not just having a towering physique for her age, to complement, well, it certainly complements the fighting skills that she already had. As for the weapon of choice, Ezra is good with any. Moses noted her arrogance, and that she had much confidence in her own body. Ezra considered herself stronger than the shorty in front of her, which prompted Moses to smack her in the face. Ooh, now that's what... Someone's asking for a fight. Moses considered virtues to be for what people who shed blood in that business must respect. That doesn't sound too Machiavellian to me. Either that or she's not being entirely honest. Regardless, this provoked Ezra into delivering a powerful haymaker, but Moses got out of the way and kicked her in the calf. This caused Ezra to go down on her knee. Staggered. Moses observed that there are a number of procedures to augment a combatant. Tattoos, like the Stray Dogs and the Kurokumo clan have. Nanotech. Oh, so they do use nanotech to augment performances. It would explain how, well, at least a few cases. At least our core. It's not just the cloning procedure. Along with performance-enhancing drugs, like the narcotics that the smiling faces smoke. Prosthetics, like the gaze office do, in the more extreme cases. Well, they replaced their entire body, only their brain is still organic. Well, brains, as there's more than one of them. But Moses saw them as largely meaningless by themselves, just as Ezra was performing a roundhouse kick towards her head. Moses effortlessly dodged this and countered with a fist to the chest. Yes, augmentations were largely meaningless without the training. Certainly regarding the knowledge of weak points. Using just enough energy to achieve a result. To make sound judgments depending on the situation. Fixer or syndicate thug. Money provides the tools, but it doesn't provide the means of using them effectively. Well, not unless you pay someone to train you, of course. Moses told her that her head was her most valuable asset. When you think things through, opportunities make themselves more clear, even in the most perilous situation. Ezra didn't give up and she jumped at Moses. But Moses tripped her up, which made her fall on her. Moses continued that she'd remain calm and stay cool at all times. Ezra was and was predictable in response. She threw punches that Moses easily dodged. Ezra hit nothing but a wall and furniture. Then Moses revealed that she was holding back, and she demonstrated that she was stronger than Ezra by stopping her right fist with a single hand, gripping it, breaking bones, telling her that she was teaching her what she needed to know in order to be a proper member of the Ujat, and also told her to call her captain next time. Several missions later, the Ujat do what they need to without anyone falling behind, none questioning a single thing about their work. She remembered the name of every Ujat member. 2,142 of them, including herself. Good memory. Well, she considered them her family. Their respect and the sense of fellowship played a part in their willingness to do the preposterous and the cruel. To most, money is a primary motivation. But for Moses and Ezra, at least, it's not about the money. Even back then. Sometime after that, Ezra asked Captain Moses if they were fixers. It would appear that she has studied much. It has given her insight. Moses told her that they all started out as fixers. Ezra did some research on that, and the Ujat was registered as a fixer office. Captain Moses was listed as its leader, instead of Lady Diaz, as she acts as a client for their requests. The only client. A massive office serving one person. Clearly this was so that she could deny being responsible for their actions, so that she could have someone to blame. As for Ezra's opinion on that, Moses cut her off, telling her that her opinion of this doesn't matter that much. Although Moses was aware of the truth. They'd seem no different to a syndicate to the unaware. Ezra asked what was the point of the line that fixers aren't meant to cross. The boundary that they seem to cross more than they and where they take requests and report the results to HANA Association, where they review these reports, basing their promotions or demotions based on the evaluation. Yet the Ujat, a grade 1 office, aren't demoted or expelled. Moses was aware that Diaz was a fully functional psychopath. One with enough connections to influence the right people, either to provide them with what they want or to threaten them with loss beyond imagining if they refuse to play it her way. She certainly has a way with words, and Ezra was figuring this out much as Moses did. that something was off about what they were doing. Ezra spoke of one of those lines was killing a civilian that's unwilling to fight back. Moses understood Diaz for who she was, one who followed her own rules, where she sees all as either those she can exploit or those she can discard. She cares not if they were civilian or not. Moses did this all for Diaz's dream, but she was starting to question this. And this was causing the highlight reel to accelerate and fragment. So I'll try to piece it together based on what fragments are there. She heard noises, cries, sounds calling her, voices that resented her. All of this wore down her resolve. It made her question her purpose even more. Then we have a revealing dialogue that ties into what would lead to one of the most significant events in the city. It seemed like a day for Moses like any other. But Diaz brought work for her, and a strawberry cake. Moses wanted to know what this was about. Diaz had someone with her, a person with grey hair and green eyes. Benjamin? Well, Diaz wanted to think big this time. Moses wanted to know what this job was about. It was about a war, much to her surprise, asking her if it was necessary for her to become a... Then Diaz cut her off, asking if Benjamin was on her side. He said that it must be done for the sake of all of them, and for his mentor, likely referring to Ian. Moses didn't know what he was talking about, and as far as Diaz was concerned, as long as he was paying her, she didn't care that much either. Also, it had to tie into what she was wanting. And apparently it did, otherwise she wouldn't have agreed to do what was to follow. Sometime after, Moses was a lot more open with her questioning of what they were doing, seeing the Ujat as mass murderers, not fixers. Diaz was asking if she wanted to become a fixer, telling her that her eyes were precious to her, seeing her as her most precious. Moses understood that he believed that she shared the same dream as her, but now she sees herself as what she truly was to Diaz, along with the others. Tools, nothing more. Then, after that, hee-joon spoke of a diversionary tactic launched with our Corps' help, which would be vital for the success of their operation. Yes, for success to be possible, it requires a clone army. Moses was aware of this. They were spilling more blood in the outpost amidst the war zone. Moses saw this as an experiment. Diaz wanted her to see all those detestable things. She wanted to save at least Ezra and hee-joon. Then someone shouted at her for defying this unspecified event. Well, it was likely what caused her to gain her psychement of her smoking pipe. So, let's sum this up. Benjamin had an arrangement with Lady Diaz to start the Smoke War, along with Arcorp to take over Elcor in order to work on the Seed of Light, and, well, we already know how that works out, don't we? As what Diaz aims for, she wants to usurp the head. She needed a pair of wings as a means to an end for that, seeing Moses as her dear eyes. Then Moses renounced her by saying that she wouldn't be her eyes. Then the bullet fell from her forehead and hit the floor. As she opened her eyes, she was back in reality, as Vesper charged at the Marksman of the Mist. This continues immediately at Chapter 38, The Marksman of the Mist. The Marksman was impressed with how resilient Moses' mind was to the bullet, as Vesper incapacitated him, which also stopped Ezra's bullet, although due to the strain, she was out cold. He was armed with a steam-powered rifle, which was similar to a psychment, but he was a distortion, one of the less common types, one with at least some of his reason intact, rather than turning into a mindless beast. This reason that was intact he used to satiate his desires and carry out his plans. It made him, along with others like him, more of a nuisance as they have actual intelligence behind their actions, with their desires hidden under layers of facade. She realized the fine line between psychement and distortion, much like one within the library does, or rather, will do. The crossroads between manifesting psychement and staying as a distortion. Moses asked for the location of the thumb's bullets. This Marksman of the Mist had a bundle of lenses for a head, a large one with smaller compound ones. He replied that they were somewhere in the mist. He was actually impressed by her. It wasn't often that someone survives one of his bullets. Moses noted that he was driven by a desire for bullets. He can't generate projectiles, he can only imbue them through his gun with his ability, when the bullets are shot at a target. He saw that she had what it took to stay on the path. She then used the white breath to cover the head that, well, was made up of lenses. The smoke just tickled him. Mental disruption was useless on him. Although it was unclear if it was due to him being a sentient distortion or just his particular case. The Marksman of the Mist wanted to know what they were doing there. They clearly weren't generic thumb henchmen, considering her noble willpower. Well, she does have a history of moral ambiguity, even by that city's standards. Not that she's proud of it now. Moses wanted to know where the bullets were stashed. He understood that she saw their conversation as a waste of time, possibly due to her being ordered to retrieve the bullets. He, on the other hand, saw it as valuable to their time, giving them a chance to realize at least give Moses a chance to realize what she wanted from life. Although he understood that she wanted to get to the point, offering her one of two things: the secret of the nest or the location of the bullets, although Moses was tempted by the secret of the nest. She needed the location of the bullets right now. He understood that they'd find it eventually. He told them that they were in the water tank of the building behind them. Then Vesper alerted Moses to two shadowy figures approaching. Moses had to wake Ezra up, although it's clear that what she saw was clearly traumatic, especially as she went through her own highlight reel. They needed to prepare for combat. One was a Zwei fixer, the other was a robotic dog with a crude club on its back. It's possible that it had a human brain, which made it a full body replacement, but it's more likely to be a robot with basic intelligence, blindly following orders, as anything more would be a violation of the AI Ethics Amendment. This Zwei fixer asked if the Marksman was the one who slaughtered the Zwei fixers at the workshop. As for who he was, according to his fixer license, he was part of Section 1 of the Zwei Association, introducing himself as Edgar, a detective from the Major Crimes Division of Zwei South. Yeah, this was serious business. Edgar wanted them to hand over that Distortion and the thumb's ammo. And yes, he was another smoker. He noted that Vesper Crabro was a rare sight in the South. Vesper was aware that he had a reputation. As for Edgar, his intel was out of date, as Vesper Crabro was expelled from M Corps. Yeah, M Corps considered him absent without leave for 2 weeks, and so they wanted to get rid of him. As for the Marksman, he laughed at how awkward this situation was. Edgar examined the killer of his fixers and told Moses, Ezra, and Vesper to stay out of this, asking what she was going to do with the bullets. Moses understood that it would be problematic if she said that she was accepting a fingers request, regardless of the reason. Ezra said that they wanted to borrow some of the bullets, which gave him the wrong idea that they were scavengers looking for loot in the aftermath. Then Rang, his robot dog, next to him informed that he overheard the conversation, and Edgar was not pleased. He saw it as fixers being bribed into doing dirty deeds for the fun. Moses introduced herself along with Ezra and Vesper. Do you really think that he wants to know that? Or cares to, considering what he's at least partially figured out? This was unimportant to Edgar, asking if they were working for the fun. Moses confirmed this to be the case, although she wasn't able to tell him that it was due to their lives being on the line. They didn't get a chance to tell him about that. Or more specifically, what was threatening their lives. When Edgar revealed how black and white his morality is. Where he saw them as scum willing to take work from a syndicate when they were in deep enough. And that was bad enough. The last thing that they needed was to fight one who was working for the safety of the city. One of the few upholding what little justice existed within that city. She was willing to go along with him and give their testimony of the situation, confident that Diaz would get them out of it, where paperwork wouldn't be a problem. Unfortunately, Edgar had other ideas. He wasn't a stickler to procedure. Moses could tell that. And Ezra wasn't confident about her chances against him. As for Vesper, he didn't reveal anything at this point. He wasn't interested in cuffing them. He saw fixers that do anything for money as contemptible, but it made his blood boil, especially when he encountered fixers that slaughter people, innocent people, led by a finger. The robot dog then turned into power armor, forming around Edgar. Yeah. He resembles an anthropomorphic German shepherd. After calling Rang, saying that it's time to bring justice, Moses called for Vesper, whom then fought back against Edgar, and Moses told Ezra to pick up the Marksman and run, understanding that they need to lure him to where Isabel, capo of the thumb, was. Moses asked the Marksman of the Mist if he can keep him in place. He said that he could, but it might kill him, or it might not work at all. It depends on how strong his mind was. It was another tough choice ahead of her. Unlikely to be the last. Well, if they get past this situation. Next we have Chapter 39, Edgar. And they were still running. But Edgar, from the Serious Crimes Division of Zwei Association South Section 1, was unable to be shaken off. Well, he didn't become part of Section 1 by being easily evaded. This resulted in some collateral damage in the form of walls collapsing, due to swords cutting through the air, and screeches of metal clashing against each other. All Vesper was doing was slowing him down. The Marksman asked why she was hesitating. She was bold with major situations, but she had problems with the minor details. Moses told him that it wasn't minor at all, as Edgar was from the Zwei Association, as crossing certain lines would result in demotion, or worse, the loss of their fixer licenses, which was why the Black Silence was demoted quite severely for his rampage, which would make death seem merciful by comparison. One line that they couldn't cross was killing a fixer from Section 1 of the Zwei Association while doing the bidding of the thumb. Well, disqualification would be the least of their problems. they'd be the target for requests. Lethal requests. That is, if whoever made them was feeling particularly merciful. If not, let's not go into that, shall we? Let's move on. She believed that Diaz would be able to clear this mess up, but she was repulsed by that thought. Justice was not something that she could speak of. She just didn't want to rely on Diaz more than she had to. Diaz was part of every problem, from cause to solution. She didn't want to ask her for help, considering it laughable to bring up righteousness and conscience as a fixer. She asked the Marksman if he could hit Edgar, and he could, anywhere in the mist and whoever she wanted. While Edgar's armor was suffering battle damage from Vesper's sword, it wasn't major. This was revealed when Edgar was in front of them, holding up Vesper with his left hand. Seeing Vesper as tough, but lacking experience, there was uncertainty with his blade. He then slammed Vesper into the ground. Moses ordered the Marksman to shoot him. He aimed right for the forehead, but Edgar easily dodged this by tilting to the side, not impressed by this cheap tactic. Edgar swung his fist at Moses. Ezra alerted Moses, and she tossed the Marksman into the air, while stopping Edgar's fist with both hands, which broke her arms due to the impact. It hit her hard and incapacitated her. He then readied his fist to execute Moses, but the fist didn't reach her. It turned out that the Marksman was able to circle the bullet around until it eventually reached Edgar, hitting him in the back of the head. This held him in place, likely giving him his own highlight reel. Moses was ready to accept her doom, but it wasn't going to be that occasion. She asked Ezra if she could stand up. She's apparently experienced worse. She took out a first aid kit that could take care of her broken arm, but it wasn't something to use lightly. Although Vesper was tenderized and beaten, Moses wanted to sort this out. She asked the Marksman how long his bullet can keep a person frozen. He said that it depended on the individual. Moses was quick to overcome it. She asked if it was okay to move a person in that state. Well, he didn't see it as a problem, but he hasn't made an attempt to do something like that before. Ezra's arms weren't usable, so she woke up Vesper, who was not in the best of moods. Well, someone needed to carry Edgar, as Ezra wasn't at her best at this point. Moses answered his question. Specifically, did she take care of Edgar? She told him that Edgar was dealt with for now. He understood the situation based on what he was seeing. That and the fact that he's still alive. In fact, all of them are, in order to speak of it. Moses advised that they get going. Vesper carried Ezra, while Moses carried Edgar. The marksman was willing to follow them, without any persuasion. They needed a place to rest before taking the ammo to Capo Isabel. And when Edgar got back to reality, he said something about not going with someone. Then he saw Moses. He called for Rang, but that robot dog was out of action. He saw both of them as captives. Ezra was relieved that he wasn't dead. The marksman saw him as another with a spirit of steel. Yeah, I know, twice in one day. Moses was sitting on a crate, watching the tired and restrained Edgar, while Ezra and Vesper were waiting for her orders. Edgar was asking what she wanted, as clearly he wasn't dead. Moses wanted to clear up the misunderstanding between them. Edgar saw them as not small-time lackeys of the thumb, as if they killed him, it would make them famous, or rather infamous, among the syndicates, which might give them nice positions among the thumb. However, this was not what she was saying at all. She told him that she was a grade 5 fixer looking into distortions. She was dealing with the distortions in that nest and retrieving them, while leaving out the part where she was working for Diaz. She told him that they crossed paths with the thumb and had no choice but to cooperate. He asked if they harmed any civilians during this errand. Moses told him that they didn't. He saw it as possible, but she didn't stop to think that the lives of innocents might be lost to the bullets that she retrieved. Which is what he finds unforgivable, as that would make them accessories to the thumb's crimes relating to those bullets. Yeah. That's problematic, isn't it? Moses saw this as a delusion, holding them to account because of that, not considering the possibility that she might want to help innocents, along with the powerless, after that business. Edgar wasn't that believing, having said similar things a number of times in his life. Moses clearly doesn't understand his situation. Edgar hinted at considering this thought if they were to turn against the thumb. Moses informed him that he seemed to think that he had the upper hand, as he was tied to a chair, although Edgar pointed out that she was trying to negotiate with him. This kind of situation was nothing new to him. Basically, to prove their innocence and to get him off their back, they needed to kill the thumb that they made the deal with. Moses agreed to this and then told Edgar what led to her making that deal with the thumb in the first place. Likely talking about their battle against the human thunderbolts, their vehicle. Yeah. That van that Diaz provided, rendered immobile in the aftermath. Then the sweepers threatening their lives. As for Vesper, he was probably thinking something along the lines of, "Some divine presence must truly exist and likes me. I get to do what I like." Although he'd probably well, yeah. He'd be restrained in how he expressed this. Well, one of them has to express some self-control. They headed back to where Capo Isabel was. Ezra and Vesper were following them, carrying the bullets. Edgar remembered that they were collecting distortions, asking how many were caught so far. Moses wasn't obligated to tell him that. Edgar knew that the distortions were causing trouble, not thinking that they could just meet them whenever they want to. Moses told him that it was trade secrets. Clearly it wasn't just Section 6 of the SWI Association that saw them as a threat. When they returned to the house that the Thumb took over, Capo Isabel and her soldados were there to greet them. And Edgar, covered in Rang, who was in power armor mode, charged at her, striking Isabel's face, which slightly knocked the Capo back. They could clearly take each other's blows. Capo Isabel asked what the meaning of that was. Moses decided not to speak with her. Edgar made it clear, no negotiation, only their destruction. Sinking into pits of violence was unavoidable. Moses told Ezra and Vesper that they'd support them. There was one Capo and 20 soldados of the Thumb versus 2 Grade 1 fixers. And clearly Edgar had better gear than Vesper, along with more combat experience. 1 Grade 3 fixer and 1 Grade 5 fixer, both with access to psychoments, along with 1 distortion that can be, well, at least partially reasoned with. Well, I think Moses at least told Edgar who her loyalties weren't with. But let's continue the story in the next video. Until next time. Hail the rabbit!